When I search for closure, I write letters.
Sometimes they're to myself, sometimes they're to others.
Sometimes I send them, sometimes I save them.
Sometimes I write them only to rip them apart.
Sometimes my words are careful, meticulously laid out on the page.
Sometimes they are reckless, scrawled with no mind for margins or mistakes.
This time, my words are hesitant, like the first few droplets of rain before a storm, an internal torrent of uncertainty and insecurities leaking onto paper. I tell myself,
this is what you need, the first step in your search. It just needs to reach its recipient.
I seal it with sorrow, stamp it with resolve, and slip it into the mailbox.
But what is closure anyway?
Closure is a letter reaching its destination.
Closure is the final harmonies of the last song of a show.
Closure is submitting your final project at 11:59.
Closure is tying a bow on the gift you know she'll love.
Closure is when the prince slays the dragon and rescues the princess.
Closure is writing the last line of a poem.
Closure is seeking reconciliation.
It's getting a chance to explain yourself.
It's hearing the story undistorted.
Closure is just knowing why.
Closure is being able to look them in the eyes again and say that you love them.
Closure is being able to look them in the eyes again and say that you don't. Closure would have been
getting to say goodbye to the church I grew up with instead of just leaving my dearest family behind.
Responding properly to confessed feelings instead of running away in fear.
Telling them I forgive them even after betrayals and shattered promises.
Talking about what was causing tension between us instead of just pretending that everything was fine.
Showing how I felt instead of locking up my anger and throwing out the key.
Hearing what they actually thought.
Knowing if I did the right thing.
Getting to say I'm sorry.
Letting go of bitterness.
Ending the lies.
Closure would have been if the letter actually reached its destination.
Return to sender.
3 screaming red words glaring up at me from my mailbox.
Return to sender.
7 months of waiting, of wondering if they even bothered to read it.
Return to sender.
I'd sent it so long ago in search of closure, but all this time, they never knew how I felt.
Closure is a treasure that we all try to find.
The answer to all of our struggles.
We scramble up mountains of guilt.
Wade through oceans of regret.
Trek through forests of fear.
We believe we will find it if we just look hard enough.
But sometimes, when we make it to the top of the mountain, there is simply nothing there. Instead, we are marked by our sufferings, marred with our bruises and scars.
Like an envelope with torn edges, beaten and worn from time past.
But these scars,
these torn edges,
are signs of our growth.
Imprints of lessons learned. While the letter was moving, I still grew in the silence. And when closure never came, I realized I didn't need it to. They may never know how I felt, and it's okay if they don't.
When the door to closure closes, it feels like you're trapped in the darkness.
But you can always still open a window.
Let the light fall on where you are now so that you can see.
What matters is not where you're going or where you have been, but who you have become.